Then would also be audio tapes available. So we got everybody up from down there? We ready to go? Still got some coming, or Joe, or what's it like?
We're pretty much set.
All right, well, let's get started then, and you tell me when, Rodney, and then I'll try to go. Okay. Well, welcome to the 7 basic needs of a husband and a wife, and this is for not just husbands and wives, but for those who are thinking about getting married, planning on getting married, or hope someday you will be married. But it's for everybody 13 and up, because you can understand it, and it's all good material, and it would be good. I wish I would have had this information before I got married. And I would have liked to have had it within the first 5 years after I got married, but it was a long time after that before I got it. But we've been teaching this for a long, long time, and now we're being able to videotape it so you can have this, and it can be used down through the years. Now, I want to ask you this question. You know, when we're thinking about marriage and relationships, and this is good not only for your marriage, and your relationship with a spouse, but also just your relationships with everybody else. It's good to know it for that. And first of all, if you do not know your spiritual gift, there are 3 categories of spiritual gifts, and we go into that in the School of Ministry and in my classes that I teach, and also we determine what the spiritual gift is. Let me tell you right up front, we don't have time to do that in this seminar, but if you will check with the office, you can get the information and you can take a little survey. It's not a test, so when you take it, you don't have to know the answers, and you only answer it just like you feel when you read it. But you take this survey to determine what your motivational gift is. There are 7 motivational gifts. There are 5 ministry gifts, 7 motivational gifts, and 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit, or manifestation gifts. But you need to learn your motivational gift. And here's the reason. This is really vital, because when you know your motivational gift and your spouse also knows their motivational gift, and you know each other's motivational gift, then you can understand why your spouse does the thing they do, or says the things, and so on and so forth. You'll understand each other much better, and you'll be able to develop your other motivational gifts as well. But it's very important that you know the motivational gift. My motivational gift is prophecy. That does not mean I prophesy. This is a motivational gift. Prophecy is in the manifestation and also in the ministry gifts. And it's not that. This is a prophet's attitude. So I have the attitude of a prophet. And my wife, thank the Lord, her gift is mercy, because that's a perfect combination. It's a real rough combination if the wife's gift is prophecy and the husband's gift is mercy, because it really causes a very different situation. But you can learn to live with it, and you can do it. It'll work. But anyway, you need to know each other's personal gifts, because one will complement the other. So I hope that you came here today wanting more than anything else, wanting to be able to be happily married, fulfilling God's promise and purpose in your life. And that's what we're hoping to do, and share with you things that will give you, enlighten you on your spouse and your spouse's needs. And this is a good place to start. Now, I gave to everybody as you came in the curse of the fall of man. You can just fold that up, take it with you, and read it later, because you won't have time to read it now, and I'm not going to go over it word for word. But you can get the information off of that. Most in Genesis, where the 3rd chapter, where to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your grief and your suffering in pregnancy and the pangs of childbearing, etc., etc. Your desire shall be to your husband. That has been preached for centuries, that means you should do whatever your husband desires you to do. And that is not what it means at all, and that's what has been preached from pulpits for centuries. It is the same Greek word, and all that is explained here to you in all of this, that it means that her desire is to control her husband. Every little girl is born with the desire to control her father. And then it goes to, I see some of you smiling already, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. This is what you have to fight, ladies. This is what you have to fight. Some of you don't have to fight it very hard. Some will have a bigger struggle. And but that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter which. The important thing is that you know what it is and you know how to deal with it and know that you must deal with it. So on a scale of 1 to 10, somebody who is, say, 8 or 9, would maybe be the president of a company or manager of an office, but she would be in charge most likely over men somewhere because it's such a strong thing. And it can lead to very serious problems. But the man has to understand also, and all of that is in here, that he is no longer the undisputed head of his household. Now, in the beginning with Adam and Eve, he was the undisputed head of his household. You get that, man? Undisputed head. But now he is no longer the undisputed head. And we find down in the New Testament that we are equal in the sight of God. Spiritually, you are equal, but socially, you are not equal. The man must be the head of his household. And we'll get into that in greater detail, but you'll find this. You ladies will learn this. The men will learn more about this in this class. And that is that the power of influence is a stronger power than the power of position. I have the power of position as the head of my family. I have the power of position as the head of this local body of believers. But the power of influence that comes from my wife, she has the power of influence. So it's just simply this. It's a little humorous, but it is just simply this. I am the head, but my wife is the neck, and the neck turns the head. But you will learn from my wife today, ladies, you will learn how to do that and do it and make your husband think it's his idea. And give him ideas, and you'll make him, he'll enjoy it. It's working together. Spiritually, we're equal. Spiritually, in the sight of God, we're equal. But God cannot work through a family properly unless the man is the umbrella of protection over his family. So the man is the umbrella. It's another teaching we would have to do, but so you'll understand get a little idea about it. The man is the umbrella over his wife and children, and he covers them. Some of these umbrellas have holes in them, but I'm telling you, an umbrella with holes in it is better than no umbrella at all. And the lady's part, the wife's part, is to keep that umbrella repaired and keep it up. Keep him in his place as head of the household and not usurp that authority. Usurping authority is the big problem. You can have authority that's given to you, but not to usurp authority. It goes into it in the Bible about ladies teaching in the church. And a lady can teach in the church and she can teach men if she's given the authority by the pastor, but not if she just takes that authority. So ladies, you're really out from under the umbrella, and you're susceptible to the attacks of Satan. When you get out from under the umbrella, you're susceptible to the attacks of Satan if you usurp authority. In our particular situation, my wife does handle all the books. A man should handle the books in the household. He should pay all the bills and everything. But at one point in time in our marriage, we talked about this, and we agreed that she would do this. We've been doing it now for 40 or 53 years, at least over 40 years. It's worked fine. She does not spend money without asking me or checking with me. And a lot of times I tell her, you could go ahead. No, I wanted to check with you first, on any, a large amount. A large amount to us is $100. I don't know what it is to you. But $50 or $100, she doesn't want to spend that unless she checks with me. But it works. It works as long as you work it together. But the man must be the authority, and the woman must recognize him as the authority. But he is not the undisputed authority. He can listen to what she has to say. One illustration, and we'll go to another step here. When Gorbachev was here in the United States, and for some conference or whatever it was, and Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan were entertaining him, and after the meeting, they were standing around socializing, and Gorbachev said to Nancy Reagan, I wonder how or what the president thinks on such and such a matter. I don't remember what it was right now, but he asked her about this, and she said to him, Mr. Gorbachev, you know what the president thinks on that matter. You've heard him explain explicitly what he believes. He says, I know what he said, but I want to know what he hears when he lays his head on his pillow at night. Now, that man had an understanding of a wife's position in a family. You see, the president has the power of position, but it's the people who counsel him and his wife that speak into his ear confidentially, privately, that causes him to make decisions that he makes. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. We've made decisions in our family. I've made the decision with her agreement, and it turned out to be wrong. I've made them with her agreement, turned out to be right. But usually she is more right than me when I counsel with her, because ladies are more susceptible to the spirit world. But something you have to watch out for, ladies, because you are more susceptible to the spirit world than men, then you can also hear from the evil spirit world. So you have to be very careful that these little thoughts and things that come to your mind are from the right source. Try the spirits, the Bible says. And it's so important for all of us, but it's especially important for wives, because you do have such great power of influence over your husband. So go through this. If you have any questions on this, we can work on it later on. You can give us a call. We'll sit down with you personally. Now, I want you to do this. Make a list. Write this down so you don't forget it. Make a list of all the things you do for your spouse just because you love him or because you love her. Make a list. Tonight, tomorrow, anytime, as soon as you possibly can after this meeting, sit down and make a list of all the things you do for your spouse because you love him or her. Now, when you make this list, let me tell you what you can't include in this list. Ladies, you cannot include in this list that you cook his meals and prepare his meals, because you would do that anyway or you'd starve to death. So you would be fixing a meal for yourself. That's not counted. Men, you can't count, well, I earn the money and I bring in the paycheck. I bring in the bread. No, you can't count that, because you got to do that anyway. Many things that you do. When I did this, and don't let this intimidate you, but when I made this list, I had 21 items on the list. But I took advantage and I spread them out as far as I could too. I said, when we go in a door, I open the door for her, in the building, out of the building. And so when we go into a building, open the door. That's one. When we come out of the building, open the door. That's two. When she gets out of the car, I open the door. When she gets in the car, that's two more. And but then I put, when we go up the stairs, I go up behind you, because at that time our office was very high, and we had to go up to our office in the old theater building, and it was a lot of steps. And I said, when you go up the steps, I go behind you to protect you in case you should slip. When we come down the steps, I always go in front of you. I order for her at a restaurant. And men should order for their wives at a restaurant, but have it understood. You find out what she wants. You don't just order what you want her to have. One time at a restaurant, I was ordering for my wife, and I had one of those waitresses that evidently was, she was hyped up on this women's lib, I guess. And she just ignored me. And she says, and I said, my wife will have so-and-so. She said, what do you have, ma'am? And I wanted to say, I just told you what I do. But that wouldn't have been polite. So then I said, and she wants so-and-so. I was naming off the salad and what she wanted on the salad and everything. And she would ignore me and turn right to her and ask her. And so on, right on down. But most of the time, waitresses and waiters understand. If they don't, they just ain't had no raisins. They don't know. They're not very bright if they don't let you order for your wife. We don't always do that. But anyway, there are these things that you do. So write down what you do for your spouse just because you love him or her. Now, after you've written all those down and you're ready to sit down with each other, then I would suggest you make 2 copies so you can give one to your spouse and keep the other one. And then you go over those, because you might find that something that you're doing is something she does not want you to do. I had one couple one time that her husband put down that he came into the kitchen to help her finish the supper meal when he got home from work, because he wanted to help her and make it easier for her. And she says, is that why you do it? And she said, I thought you were coming in because I wasn't doing it fast enough for you. So see, what he was doing because he loved her, she interpreted as being something that he was doing to interfere with her. So that's why you sit down and talk them over. So after you write all of them down and you sit down to talk them over, then you ask this question of your spouse. Is there anything here that I do that you would prefer I not do? And also, is there anything that you would like to add to this list that I'm not doing? I had a couple come in for counsel one time, and this is the first thing I had them do, sit down with each other to make a list. When they came back to me on the next visit, he had one thing on his list. Well, I don't need to tell you that it ended in divorce a few months later, because it was all about him. Marriage relationships and all relationships, people, is about the other person, not you. If you come first, you're going to have problems in all relationships. If you have to have your way and your agenda, then you're going to have problems with all relationships. So make that list and go over it with your wife. Now, I've explained the curse and the fall, so you've got that information. And make sure you make this list. And then also determine your spiritual gift if you do not know your spiritual gift now. How many of you here know your spiritual gift, your motivational gift? You know what it is, okay? That's about half. So I would suggest that you get that information from the office. And all of this material that we use is all from Basic Youth Conflicts, or now it's Institute of Basic Life Principles, IBLP, Bill Gothard. And we have the seminars here. We have the IBLP seminar here at the church. We also, every year, and we'll also have the advanced every year. And you can get more of this, but you will not get this material in the IBLP in the first course. It comes in the advanced. And you'll have the opportunity to substantiate this and learn more about this then at that time. Now, we're going to dismiss from this point in time, and the ladies will all go down to the school ministry room at the end of the hall and down the hall. And with my wife, and the men stay here, and with the men all move up here to the front, please. It's real close. Thank you. All right, for the first of the 7 basic needs of a wife. I'll read down in this column on the left so that we'll all be looking at the same thing together here, but then I'll point out some other things to you and give you things to write down. And by the way, you use this guide not as a weapon, but as a tool. You do not want to share this with your wife. This is something that you don't need to hide it, but keep it to yourself. Just do the things that it has here. But you see, if you look at hers or she looks at yours, then somebody is liable to say, well, they told you to do this, why aren't you doing that? You know, this is what you're supposed to do. The first person we're going to change is you, not your wife. You have to change first. When you change, then she will change. This is the way the whole thing works. When you start being what you need to be for your wife, then she will start being what she needs to be for you. I'm telling you, 53 years of marriage, I know what I'm talking about. It works a lot better this way than trying to make them do what you think that you want them to do or what you'd like for them to do. Okay, every woman has certain needs, it says, which will only be met by strong spiritual leadership. Spiritual leadership is not only where a man is spiritually, it is what direction he is going. Now, there are 4 major marks of spiritual leadership that a wife looks for in her husband. First of all, a desire to seek the Lord. Your wife needs to know that you delight in the Lord and are getting direction from Him. This comes from a consistent, growing relationship with the Lord. Now, don't look at that anymore, but write down anything that you feel that you would like to have on this in your notes. Now, whether it's saved or lost, the man is the spiritual leader. When we're talking about spiritual leader, we're not talking about what depth of spirituality this person has, that you have. That's not what we're talking about. How could we even determine who is more spiritual than the other anyway? That would be judging. So it's not how spiritual you are, but you are the spiritual leader. You are recognized by God and by Satan and the imps of hell as the spiritual head of your household. When you are the spiritual head of your household, well, you are the spiritual head of your household. How well you do this is determined by you and your relationship with God. But you are recognized as the spiritual head. Satan recognizes that. Now, a good example is my father, as far as I know, was not a Christian until I started preaching, and he was in his 50s. And he accepted the Lord when I was preaching one night. And as far as I know, he was not a Christian in all those years. However, he had Christian parents. He knew the Bible. I never saw him read the Bible. I never heard him pray. But he was the spiritual head of our house. And remember, as I said, every man is the spiritual head. It's up to the wife to help him to be the spiritual head, and it's up to him to take his place as the spiritual head. Well, my father did not understand any of this, did not know any of this, and I know he read his Bible because he knew it anyway, because he taught us all the principles of the Word. You did not work on Sunday, because he thought that was really one of the laws you had to follow. I mean, he would not do that. We were farmers and hauled milk and had our own dairy, and we had to work 7 days a week. What you had to do, you did, but what you didn't have to do, you didn't do anything else on Sunday. God blessed him. He was one of the most successful farmers in our area, and we didn't realize how blessed we were. But he was greatly blessed because he lived by the principles of the Word. But even if he didn't, he was still the spiritual head of his house. All of the children grew up to be good, strong, moral people. All of us got saved after we were grown because we didn't have any influence of the church or to know that we needed Christ in our lives. But God did save every one of them. And of 6 of us in the family and our children and etc., God did a work because my mother recognized him as the head of the household, and he was the spiritual head because he is recognized by Satan and by God as the spiritual head. So even though he wasn't a Christian, he did a fantastic job in being that person. So saved or lost, a man must be the spiritual leader. St. Francis of Assisi said, "Wherever you go, preach, and sometimes use words." I think this is one of the greatest one-line messages you could ever get. It's not what you say, it's how you live. This is what makes the difference in your family. And I use my family as a reference. And you look, 4 children, 9 grandchildren, all of them are saved, all of them active in the church, working for the Lord, all of them with satisfied marriages, relationships, and God is working through all of them. It's not because I did such a great thing or taught them so well. Their mother did a fantastic job of teaching them because she was with them more than I. And so that's how it turns out. But it's not by what we were saying, it's the example that we set. You've got to live the example. Your children will see around all the things you say. Just recently, my wife has been hearing on TV 2 or 3 situations where men are there talking about their being raised in a pastoral home and how their fathers were one thing in the pulpit and another thing at home. And it just drove them away from the church. Well, one of the best examples, all I can tell you is, look at a family where they are all in the church. So it's not what you say, it's not how you rule, but it's how you live that makes the big difference in your wife and your children. I always suggest to couples after they've been married a while and things seem to cool off a little bit. And by the way, most divorces occur in the first 5 years of a marriage, and the next period of time where the next most divorces occur is in 20 to 25 years. Now you understand why, don't you? Because usually they have children at first. Now the children are 18, 20 years old, 25. I mean, they're getting up, and now they're out. Now they don't need, now one can say, well, they don't need me anymore. I can get rid of this man, or I can get rid of this, my wife. I can get out of this, and everybody can take care of themselves. So it's 5 and 20 to 25 years. And it's because of that, plus the change in things, and ladies, the hormones, and the men change as well. If you're old enough to have been through a midlife crisis, then you understand, men. But men have denied that there is such a thing. I'm telling you, there is such a thing. I've been through it. If you haven't been through it, you're either lying or you're very fortunate. But men go through that 35 to 40, 45 years of age. You go through this period of time that you have a lot of questions in your mind and so on. And so don't think that you won't go through it if you're younger than that. It does take place. But you have to take all these things into consideration. I've said it jokingly a lot of times, about the time I learn how to play my wife's game, then she changes the rules. So you just have to be ready, because there are changes that take place. There are bodily changes that take place. Your most important task is to treat her like Christ treated the church. Love her like Christ loved the church, as it says in Ephesians. Love her as Christ loved the church. So many times it comes from the pulpit that wives are supposed to submit themselves to their husbands. They hear that from the pastor, but the husbands don't hear treat your wife as Christ does the church. Anita Bratt, probably most of you have never heard of her, but she was the orange juice girl for a long time. I think it was Miss America at one time. And I met her personally about maybe 10 years ago or so. I don't remember now, but down in Miami, Florida, at her home. And there with her, and I heard her say this, and because later on her marriage failed and they divorced. But I heard her say this personally in the group where we were conversing there socially. And she said, the preacher's always preaching about wives, be submissive to your husbands. But they don't say anything to the husbands about treat your wife as Christ loves the church. And her husband was a deacon in the church. The marriage failed. He couldn't understand it, didn't know, didn't have a clue as to why his marriage failed. He simply was not the spiritual leader. He was not loving his wife as Christ loved the church. Man, Christ loved the church so much he gave his life for the church. Well, every one of you said, well, I would give my life for my wife. I would protect her. Yeah, you might physically, and then I'm not sure you'd even do it physically. But we think we would at least. But that's not what we're talking about. Love her to where you prefer her before yourself. You see, I prefer not only my wife, but everybody in my relationships. I prefer them before myself. You are preferred before me. If we have a fellowship supper and sit down, people say, well, go on, preacher, get up there. You're the pastor. You get up. I won't go to the head because I prefer everyone else. You are preferred before me. Anytime we're together, man, I want to tell you, you have the preference, not me. You're the one that is to be served and honored because I'm the servant. And if you're not like that, you better get like that, because I'm the servant to my wife, her protector and her servant. And I prefer her over myself. A couple of things that we did is never talk about unpleasant things at the table or when you go to bed. Now, the reason I say this is that one is for the man, one's for the lady. Men want to discuss unpleasant things at the table. Women want to discuss unpleasant things after they lay down at night. They're both wrong. Don't ever do it. We have an agreement. Joan and I have had this agreement for probably 40 years of our marriage. I remember when the children were small in school. One time in particular, I remember when we sat down at the table and my son Fritz started something, or I had something to talk to him about. Something I wanted him to do around the house that he didn't do that day. And so here I am eating, and I started on him because this was my chance, because I got him, and he may get out of the house before I can do this. So I'm going to start it here at the table. And it was an unpleasant thing. My wife did not interfere. She did not say, hey, remember rule number 1? No, she didn't say anything about that. You know what she did? After I had my little first say-so, and I was getting wound up for my second one. I was really going to give him a 1-2 punch here, maybe 3 or 4. Well, right as soon as there was a lull in the conversation, she just looked over at Fritz and she says, Fritz, how'd you go at school today? What'd you do at school? I knew what she was doing. She was changing the conversation. And so I thought, well, I'll try it again. So I tried again to get it, and she just right away, when I got done, then she changed the conversation and asking Fritz about something or one of the other children. She just totally ignored what I was trying to do because she couldn't say anything to me in front of the children. So that settled out. I took care of it. I understood what she was doing. I said, hey, great, she's doing a terrific job. I was wrong. Another time, get in bed at night, where there would be something unpleasant she'd want to talk to me about. That's the worst time for you to bring up anything to a man. You all know that without me telling you. And she started on something. I says, honey, now remember, we don't talk about things, unpleasant things, when we get ready to go to bed. Well, but so-and-so and so-and-so, honey, we don't talk about unpleasant things before we go to bed. I never got angry, did not get angry, and I just said that about 3 or 4 times. Now, then the last time I said it, 3rd or 4th time, I said, honey, do I need to leave the room? Do I need to go into another bedroom? Or are we going to go to sleep? Well, I can't talk to you because you're busy. I'll make an appointment with you. How about 10 o'clock in the morning, you and I sit down and we'll talk this over? Okay, so we went to sleep. You see, that could have been an argument. It could have been a battle, and it could have kept us both awake. I ain't stupid, I'm going to get my sleep. And the only way I'm going to get it is to do this thing right. And I'm not going to have my sleep disturbed. We have not ever laid in bed, argued and fussed, and then turned over and turned our backs to each other. Not ever. And I know most people don't believe this, but we have never, ever had a major disagreement. Never had a major disagreement. We have not shouted at each other. I've never hit her. I've never touched her. We don't do that. We have never done that. We do not yell at each other. However, she'll accuse me of yelling at her sometimes because I sound so mean when I talk. And even when I'm teaching here, you'll pick up on it because that's part of being born in the Midwest Yankee, plus speaking your mouth, speaking your mind, and also a prophet where you're harsh in what you say, but not yelling at each other. And seriously, the neighbors have never heard us hard. I've heard my neighbors. I've heard them shouting all the way from inside their house, inside our house. But you won't hear that. We've never done that. Don't do it. It has no place. Prefer her before yourself. Now, here she desires her desire to seek the Lord for you. List the evidences in your life that show that desire to seek the Lord. So now this is for you to mark. You can do it now, you can do it later. Do you have regular time in God's Word? Are you doing consistent memorization of the Scripture? Faithful in prayer, regular church attendance, and so on. Now, what books do you read? What books do you have around the house? These are the Christian books, etc. It's what you should be reading. I never read novels. I have never read a novel. I never read fiction. I only read factual, historical things and ministry items. Never have had any interest in any of the others. But at any rate, check what you do or what you want to do. I would not suggest that if you're not doing any of them, don't check them all off. You'll never get to any of them. Start on 1 or 2. Or if there are 1 or 2 in here that you think you need to do that you haven't been doing, then just check those off and then start doing them. All right, number 2, convictions based on Scripture. As your wife sees you establishing God's standards, she will be motivated to submit to your leadership and set similar standards in her own life. So list the evidences of scriptural convictions which you have or purpose to have. As we already said, demonstrating love for God by loving your wife, children, and others. And it gives you a scripture verse, 1 John 4:20. So you demonstrate your love for God and by loving your wife. You demonstrate that love. If you demonstrate to your wife and your children peace and calmness, that's what they'll get. That's exactly what they'll get. Our house, our home has always been a place of calm. We have had people be in our house and the phone would ring frequently. It doesn't much anymore now since Fritz is the pastor here, and people don't call the house like they used to in the early days of our ministry. Our phone just rang off the hook. But they don't let that upset you, and don't let that disturb you. But one particular time, a man came into our house while we were eating supper. Just walked right in, just knocked on the door, walked right in. We were living in the house that was owned by the church, and people just thought they had a right to do that. So he just pecked on the door, walked right in, and here we are eating. And he's standing there telling us and telling me, I'm going to go kill so-and-so. He was the local policeman. And I said, why? Well, this man did so-and-so to my daughters and such and such and so-and-so. And I said, and I looked at him, called him by name, and I said, I said, you can't do that. If you do that, they'll put you in jail. Well, it won't be for very long because he, so-and-so, and I'll be back out. I said, you really need to calm down and think this thing over. Well, make a long story short, he left and he didn't kill the man. He got to thinking it over, and I was able to calm him down a little. But right there in the middle of our conversation, I brought calm to the table. I finished my meal. My wife was upset she couldn't finish hers, but the children and I went ahead and ate, finished our meal. But bring calm to your home. Don't ever let anything disturb you. Men, you never have the right to ever be depressed. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been bothered by this or not, or if you ever will. I thank God I can almost say I've never been touched by this. I did have an experience a few years ago as a result of surgery that I had a down time, and I didn't know how to handle it. It was very difficult for me. But one time in my life, I had a day which I was really, really troubled, and Satan was really attacking me. I said to my wife, I'm going off. I'll be off today. I got to be back tonight to preach, but I'm going all day. It was Wednesday. I said I didn't have cell phones then, so calling, you had to find a payphone or whatever. I said I was going to find a friend that would pray with me. And so I headed out trying to find him. I didn't know he had moved his office, so I couldn't find him, and I was pretty distraught. And I got by myself, and I prayed in my car, and I got everything all settled, and I went back home. But I would not stay at the house with this disturbance going on in me, this attack going on in me. I would not subject my wife and my children to this. So I went away for that day, part of the day, to do this, just into town and prayed in order to be able to handle this. You do not have that right to ever be depressed. You are the head of the house. If something's bothering you, get out, get away, and get it settled and come back and be the man and stand there and take your place. People will come to us, and I started to say a while ago, they'll be in our house, visitors, sometimes couples, other people, even my mother said, your phone rings off the hook, but yet it just seems to be so calm and peaceful here. It does, and it is, and it still is. It always is. It always has been. God has blessed me in this way that I stay calm. I don't think anybody in here has ever seen me get upset. Maybe one man has, but even when I'm upset, I'm not upset. It's controlled, I don't get angry and let things fly. I did. I had a serious problem with that before the Lord saved me. But I do not do that. I don't have a right to do that. It doesn't just involve me, it involves everybody around me. And it presents a very bad picture, and people lose confidence in you if you do that. So it's not just your wife, it's everyone around you. When they see that you fly off the handle at the least little thing and got to speak your piece and give your word out, well, who are you, God? Get off of it. You don't have a right to do that or be that way around your wife or anybody else. Next, avoiding actions or activities that might cause your wife, children, or others to stumble. Romans 14. Purposing to make your home a center of godly learning and living. Psalm 101. And then there are others. You could list others there if you like. I got to move on quickly here. 3. Determination to follow convictions. Our consistent obedience to scriptural standards provides the strength and example your wife needs to obey God and you. So list the obstacles which hinder you from consistently obeying God's standards. Determine steps to overcome them. Now look at these things that you have here on this list. This list goes back many, many years. So they haven't listed some things on there that might be on there today in this society. They don't list pornography or anything like that on here, but you could list that. That has no place in your life or in your home. It will cause trouble. You may think you can handle it at first, but it will not work. You cannot handle it, and the best thing to do is just get rid of it immediately. But anyway, all these down through here: influence and attention to TV, influence of wrong friends, losing your temper, wrong priorities, guilt from past failures, etc. Now, these, again, list the ones particularly that might stand out more than the others. I think influence and attention to TV. There's really, there's no problem in our house who controls the clicker. That is no problem. Who is the Lord of the clicker in my house? My wife has the clicker. I don't even pick it up until she says, I don't know, there isn't anything on here, you find something. And she hands it to me. Up to then, I'm watching home shows. I'm watching antique road show. I'm watching whatever it is that she's got on there. I'm sitting there, and whatever she's watching, I'm watching, or I'm reading while she's watching. In the first place, I don't care for anything else that's on there. There might be one program in the whole week besides the news, but the news we agree on, we watch it together at night before we go to bed. and that's it. And then maybe Fox News, because we agree with the conservative stands and so on. But other than that, we don't have any particular shows we have to watch, even football or baseball. Not that much on sports. If you are, then this should be understood. At my house, well, the only time football comes into play is when the Falcons are doing good and they're in the finals or whatever, like they were this year. Well, then we'll have that on. But usually some of the kids are over there for that as well. In fact, the Super Bowl, I didn't even watch the first half of it because I was busy watching Funniest Home Videos. I was in another room watching Funniest Home videos when the Super Bowl came on, so I'd rather watch that than Super Bowl. I'd in there just dying laughing. And Super Bowl wasn't very funny. So this is understood. So you agree on these things. Now, the fourth thing that we gave, and gave you this in the assembly, is to love in whatever is done. The evidence of being led and motivated by God's Spirit is having the fruit of the Spirit in all your actions. The first fruit is love. So we already told you in the beginning to list the ways in which you are demonstrating love to your wife. Then ask her to explain which ones do or do not express love to her and why. So you'll ask her these things. Pick out anything in this list. And I hope you have a list of at least 7 or 8 or 10. You certainly ought to. You heard me give the reference to some of the things that I do and have done for my wife all these years. And people comment continually on how that when they see us walking together, I'm holding her hand. Well, I like to hold hands with her. We've been married 53 years, but I still like to hold hands with her, and I still like to walk with her. But also, I know where she is, and I know if she stumbles or anything. There have been many times where she has stepped off a curb or caught a hole in the street or something that could have caused her to trip, and she didn't because I was holding on to her. One of the reasons for this is one time she did trip and I wasn't holding her hand and she sprained her ankle. And so I said, well, I don't want to ever let this happen again. And so I watch out for her. I'm careful about her. I treat her like a china doll. I do not allow her to lift heavy things. I don't allow her to, there's things around the house. I'll tell you something, men, that you don't need to put this in your list. There are things that you can do that you do not put in your list, because then when she sees it, then she says, well, he's doing this because he's obligated himself to do it. I want to tell you something that I do for my wife, and you don't tell your wives now. Don't tell your wives that I told you this. This is something very personal with between the two of us. And I want it that way, and you want it that way. You don't tip your hand. You don't tell the other guy what you got in your hand, right? So every now and then, 2 or 3 times a month maybe, my wife likes to take a bath at night. She takes a bath in the morning, takes a bath at night. When she's in there taking her bath at night, I have some of these, I keep these sea salts that are fragrant, they're perfumed. And I keep a jar of these in my bathroom. So I try to catch it right, because she's in and out of that tub so quick, I got to be quick to do it. And I go get the sea salts, and then I have foot lotion and that I have there with it. And I come into her bathroom while she's taking her bath, try to get just as soon as she got in there. And I come in and open them. She knows what I'm doing. I come in, set the sea salts down. I open that. I rub her feet with those sea salts. I scrub her feet with those things. And that brings relief and softness to them. And then I do it all the way, cut up to her knee, just rub and rub and rub, and I exfoliate the dead flesh. And then I do the other foot, Then when she comes out, she knows when she gets in the bed that I'm going to come over with the foot lotion, and I'm going to do the same thing and work this all into her feet and lower leg. And this is something I do. I started doing it. She didn't say a word. She appreciates this more than anything that I know of that I do. Another thing is I give her flowers. I give frequently, men, they don't care how much you paid for them or how little you paid for them, just the fact that you bring them flowers. I grow a lot of flowers at the house, and I cut them and bring them in the house. But also, if you're at the supermarket, they sell them flowers. They're really cheap. You can buy a potted plant. I came in with a potted plant last week for my wife. The week before I came in with cut flowers. The week before that I came in with cut flowers. I don't do it every week. That's the most in a row that I've done in a long time. But it just kind of hit me in the springtime and kind of dreary and gives her something to brighten up the day. They really appreciate this. Now, one thing you have to really be careful about, men, is that what you say weighs so much. And the same way with your wife. And they'll be told this in the class with my wife. You can do something or say something that will change the whole way of life for you. When I was traveling a lot, I was traveling for 9 years. Every week I'd leave on Monday, come home on Saturday, preach on Sunday. Leave on Monday, come home on Friday or Saturday, preach on Sunday. I did that for 9 years. And frequently, when I would leave town, in fact, I collected so many of the little bud vases, I'd get a whole box full of them, 30 or 40 boxes, in a box. I'd take them back to the florist and say, I don't need these things around, use them again. And I would tell her, my wife was working at that time, managing a clothing store, and the florist was right behind there. So I would go over there or call Nell. I'd just call her on the phone and I said, Nell, I'm leaving today at 2 o'clock. I'm headed for the airport. Around 2:15, 2:30, would you drop over and with 3 red roses, 3 yellow roses, or 1 red one, whatever. I'd make it different. And I didn't do it every week, but I did it 2 or 3 times a month. And so she never knew when it was happening. And I'd go by the store, kiss her goodbye, and I'd go take off for the airport. And sure enough, here Nell would come with the flowers. And then she'd tell me on the phone that night how much she appreciated them. Now, one time, this is very important that you hear this. She'll tell it to the wives today, I'm sure. Because I didn't know this until years later when she told it to the wives in one of these meetings. She said one time that Nell brought the flowers in and I was still there. And she looked and saw me and said, oh, I'm sorry, Fred. And I said, no, it's all right. Come on, bring it on. That's all right. And so she handed them to her. Now, listen to this statement. She said, it must be great, it must be wonderful that your husband thinks so much of you to send you flowers like this so often. And she says, yes, it really is. It means a lot. But I pay for them. And so I walked out of there, and I was not hurt by this. I was not hurt. If I had been, I'd been pretty small of me, wasn't pretty immature if I had been hurt. But I never even thought about it. About 3 years later, she was teaching the ladies right down the hall here this same thing that we're teaching now. And she told the ladies about that situation. She says, do you know he has not given me a flower since? Did I do it deliberately? No. But she pays the bills. Well, if she thinks this is extravagant, I better not do this. I mean, if she had said, I buy a candy bar every day, and if she said, well, I think that's extravagant, I wouldn't do it. I mean, this is how sensitive we are to each other, or should be. And I had not bought her flowers for 3 years or more, not even 1 flower, because it settled in the back of my mind. It wasn't a deliberate thing. It was not really a deliberate thing at all. It's what your unconscious mind does. So if consciously you're always putting her first, then unconsciously you'll put her first. You don't even have to think twice. You put her first. You don't even think twice. You just put her first. That's all there is to it. Now, there's been things that I have done, that said, and what she used to prepare. She used to prepare the steak, chopped steak, or whatever you call it, where it's really beat up a lot. And she prepared it with a red sauce, with tomato sauce, and I really liked it. But one day I said to her, I'd like to have that steak with the brown gravy the next time. And so, sure enough, I got steak with the brown gravy the next time. I never got the steak with the red gravy ever again to this day. I haven't gotten it. And about 2 years ago, we were over at our daughter's house, and she had this, and I said, honey, this is really good. You ought to fix it like this way sometime. She says, I used to, but you told me you liked the brown gravy better. I said, oh. And see, I had even forgotten I said it. But if he doesn't want that, then I'm not going to do it. And this is how sensitive we should be to each other, to prefer the other person over ourselves. So you list the ways and then sit down with her and make sure that you understand these. And ask her, don't think you're putting yourself out on a limb and you're going to, if something you want to put on the list that's not on there, you go ahead. Don't think she's going to take advantage of you. I don't think she will. But what she lists, then that's a guide for you to know what to do, to show her that you love her. Just things that you do just because you love her. Not for any other reason at all, but for that. Now, let me throw this in here because I think I've got time to put this in here now and it would come in another place later, but let me just put it in here now. Also, women pretty well have the idea, and they're not far from wrong, that the only thing men think of is sex. At least that's 90% of the time. By the way, women are 90% emotional and 10% physical in their relationships, and men are 90% physical and 10% emotional. And a man thinks that, I said that one time, men think about sex most of the time, and of course I said, what else? What else is there? But men are that way. Women don't understand that they are that way. So we have to understand each other. What I'm telling you, men, is that when you're with your wives, don't treat her as though you're expecting this to end up with a sexual experience. Because what will really, really please her is that you seem to be going that way, but then you don't pursue it to the end. And I told this to a man one time who said his wife was just so cold to him and so on, and he just had to, and so, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I said, I'll tell you what you do. When you get in bed, I said, turn over, by her, get close to her, hold her, caress her, touch her, rub her. She's going to think you're up to something and you're wanting something. But then, after you've done that for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, then say, good night, honey, give her a kiss, turn over and go to sleep. She'll say, what is going on here? And then you build an interest. You build an interest. They love to be touched. But everybody loves to be touched. As I've said before, you see me go through the church. You see me go past everybody, men and women. I always touch them. I pat them on the shoulder as I go by. Take them by the hand if I can. Doesn't matter whether you shake an hand. Grab another a little bit. Touch them as you go by. Just touch them. Touch is affection. Touch means affection. And when you touch hard, that is spanking or beating someone, that's the opposite. It's supposed to be affection. I would not ever discipline my children with my hand. I always discipline them with a little switch or something, because this is supposed to represent love, not harm. So touch her and love her and show her that and make these lists and go over it. All right? We're going to go to number 2. She needs to know that she is meeting vital needs in your life and work that no other woman can meet. A wife must feel special to her husband. Telling her she is special isn't enough. She's special. God made her to be a helpmate for her husband. So she needs to know that she's meeting vital needs in your life and work that no other woman can meet. I'm going to tell you exactly what that means here in just a moment. First of all, list the needs that your wife is now meeting that no other woman can meet. She is the basis of your most important message, drawing others to Christ by illustrating how Christ loves the church. Now, men, you don't know this. I don't think you know this unless you've heard me teach this before or heard this material before. But your wife reflects you and how you treat her. Not doing this to judge at all, but I can tell a wife that is browbeat by her husband. She doesn't have a smile. Her countenance is not happy. She reflects how you treat her. You leave home, you come to church, and on the way you're beating her over the head about something and going, this is no time to do it. I should make that the third rule. You don't do things like this going to church. By the way, when you do have something that you disagree on, you make an appointment and you sit down and talk about it and set a time limit on it. You don't do it on your way to church as well as mealtime or bedtime. But then you come walking in, and here, even if you don't do that, if you've been browbeating her during the week, she's going to walk in these doors, and every woman is going to see and feel sorry for her. They sense this. They have a higher sensitivity in the spirit realm than men do. And they will sense when that woman is hurt and things are not going well. They can see it on their face. She is a reflection of your relationship with Christ. Your wife is a reflection of your relationship with Christ. And so she's the basis of your most important message. She's the message that other people see as to how you love her, whether you love her or not, as Christ loves the church. Next page, it says, the needs she is meeting must be of importance to him. The more important they are, the more he will praise and appreciate her. She provides the potential for power in your prayers. 1 Peter 3:7. This is the agreement. This is they agree together. When you're praying together, that's the strongest power. And that's the strongest power that you have. The greatest union in prayer is that you agree together. This is the strongest union. A man and wife are the strongest union for each other in prayer. Give James one of these. That's what I'm trying to do. Get one of these back to James. He came in late, didn't get one. Okay? So you agree together in prayer. And this is the strongest power against Satan. The two of you in agreement. So if you're in agreement in prayer, and you're also in agreement in your relationship, you're going to have great power against Satan. All right? She is an alarm system against other women with wrong motives. Now let me tell you a secret here, men. I know what most men will do when this happens. Your wife will come to you. Maybe you've had this happen, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, you will have it happen. Your wife comes to you and says, have you noticed so-and-so where you work or in the church or so? Have you noticed her? She's coming on to you. She's flirting with you. And what would you say? What would your reaction be? Oh, no. And then you know what her reaction is? That stupid thing. He doesn't realize what's going on. He's liable to fall right into the trap because he's so stupid he doesn't see it. And you think you're doing the right thing by saying, no, not ever. Well, you know, there's a word in Shakespeare. It says, methinks you protest too loudly. And if you carry on about how, no, this woman's not coming on to me, then you're going to convince her even more you're stupid, or you know that she's doing it and you like it, one or the other. So what do you do? What do you do? The Bible says agree with your adversary quickly. This is the time to agree. If your wife says to you, have you noticed so-and-so? She's coming on to you. She's been, she likes you. She's got designs on you. And you say, I think you're right. I believe you're right. Well, I'll be careful. Hey, she's happy then because now she knows you're not stupid, that you see it also, and since you see it, you will avoid it. But I'm telling you, to deny it is absolutely the wrong thing to do. There was a movie, and I don't recommend a lot of movies, don't particularly recommend this one, and it was many, many years ago, Love American Style. But it was so funny because it was men that got caught in affairs and how they handled the affairs. And I think it's an educational film from that standpoint. It's really not lewd or anything like that. It borders on, to me, but now you see stuff worse than that on TV all the time, because this movie is probably 40 years old. But it really does tell the story about what what various men do when they get caught in an affair. But be smart and be wise. Agree that this person is like that. Admit that you feel that too, and you're on the watch for it. I've been there, man. I've been there. I know. The first times it happened to me, I said no, and I knew she was right. And she was worried. As soon as I said, you're right, it's obvious, then she was satisfied and knew that I would handle the thing, that I wasn't going to get caught in some trap. Okay, number 4, she is a mirror of your present spiritual condition. Already mentioned that because she reflects your spiritual condition. The look on her face, her countenance will tell others what your spiritual condition is and how you are a good umbrella or not over her. Number 5, she can give you the joy of physical relationship without guilt. This is one of the most important ones. She needs to know that she is meeting vital needs in your life and work that no other woman can meet. Now, when you can tell your wife what you learned in this seminar as much as you want to. Most of it is going to be a demonstration. Demonstrate what you learned in here. But you can sit down with her and tell her these things. You can say to her, honey, the reason you're so vital to me is that you meet needs that no other woman can meet. Well, right away she's thinking, the first thing that'll come to her mind, which isn't the first thing that always comes to a woman's mind, is sex. She'll think right away, well, anybody can do what I do for you sexually. She may think, well, anybody can do what I do for you in the house, cooking and all these other things, cleaning the house, making a home, etc., etc. No, you tell her, because I cannot have a physical relationship with any other woman without having guilt. And I couldn't stand having guilt. So, honey, you're the only woman for me, and you always will be, and there will not ever be anybody else. Because I couldn't do that without having guilt. There it is, Proverbs 5, 19 and 20. And show her the scripture. You meet vital needs in my life that no other woman can meet. There it is, plain and simple. Reading on down the left column there, the second paragraph, the most devastating action of a husband is to give one of her special tasks to some other woman to do. Adding insult to injury would be to praise the other woman for doing it. You know, you got something, my wife does not cook she cooks. She does not sew. I was thinking about that old movie, she can't cook, she won't sew, she won't mop the floor. So I picked up my hat and walked and tiptoed out the door. My wife does not know how to sew. So we had a sewing machine one time, and she said, can you fix the sewing machine? I said, repairmen have worked on this machine, and they said cannot be fixed. And she says, well, you can fix anything. And by the way, this is what my wife has done for the children. I can fix anything. I'm so strong. There's no man in the world stronger than me, no man smarter than me. I can fix anything that's broken. I think she believes that. She keeps telling me that. She's told the kids that. And this is what you want. This is what you need. You need to be built up like this, and it builds your confidence, but it also gives your children someone to look forward to and upward to and to admire. And so things that have to be sewed, I could take them to somebody else and have them sew them. And then if I said, well, but she does this so well, that would be an injury to my wife. But anyway, we had a sewing machine that wouldn't work, and she said, you can fix it. I says, I can't. I don't know anything about a sewing machine. Show me how it works. Well, I used to watch my mother sew a lot, and so I knew kind of what you had to do. And she said, well, you do this, and she told me the things to do. So I sat down. That year at Christmas, by the way, we were so poor. The poor people were calling us poor. And we went to Kentucky Fried Chicken and licked other people's fingers. We were so poor. Then this Christmas, we had nothing. We were destitute. One of my best friends came and handed me $500. And he said, I had this in bonds. I cashed it. It's the best I can do. Can this help you? I said, I don't want you to. He said, I didn't ask you if you wanted me to or not. Just take it. And they got Christmas presents for the kids. But Joan and I, she says, if you will fix this sewing machine, we'll make doll clothes for them. Well, she cut out the doll clothes and I sewed them, because she took sewing in school, but she just wasn't good at it. She don't know much about machinery. And so I said, well, this machine, I sat down and looked at it, and I said, well, the needle's going down crooked. Now, repairmen had looked at this thing 3 times. I'd had it in the shop, and nobody could fix this machine. I got a pair of pliers, I got a hold of it, and I just straightened it. Zip, away it went. And we made doll clothes for the girls for Christmas, for their little dolls. We did other things, and made other things with this. And so this is the kind of thing that builds this relationship. But when she does something especially well, my dad made a big mistake when we first got married. They had been to visit us, and he had eaten Joan's not Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was before Kentucky Fried Chicken. He would eat her chicken that she fried. She fries it Southern style. Not even Kentucky Fried can touch this chicken that she fries. And so she fried this chicken, and my mother, Midwest Yankee, up in Ohio, and she hers was soggy. Her chicken would be soggy. Put water in there and steamed it after she fried it, and I thought it was pretty good till I tasted my wife's, well, her grandmother's chicken and then my wife's chicken. So one time we were up visiting Mom and Dad, and my dad did the worst thing in the world he could have done, but he'd already done so many things, it didn't really matter that much. But he went, as soon as we got there, he took off, went down to the store where he could buy, in those days, fresh chicken that the grocer himself bought live and killed and cleaned, right there at the store. He came back with a couple of chickens and brought them into the house and laid them in the kitchen. He says, Mom, let Joan fry this chicken. She fries a lot better than you do. That you don't do. Well, my wife was on my mother's hit list from then on. That did it with her. But anyway, you compliment her, and you don't give her special tasks for somebody else to do it, and then compliment them as well. That would be even worse. The scourge of a woman is jealousy. Jealousy is fear of being displaced. A woman's jealousy comes from a fear of being displaced or replaced by somebody else. So when women are jealous, this is where it's coming from. Now, this is very important, man. You'll have this happen all down through life. Women are jealous because they have a fear of being displaced. Men are not jealous from the standpoint of having a fear of being replaced or displaced. Men are jealous because they know what they might do or might have done in a particular situation. A man whose wife goes to work and she's in an office with other men and women in the office, he would be jealous if he isn't in control of himself. If he doesn't know who he is and confident in himself, he will start getting pictures in his head about her having affairs with somebody that she works with. Because he knows that he is either doing that or tempted to do that where he is. Now, if you're not tempted to do that, I mean, if you've handled this in your life, I've been in office work, I've managed an office, I had people working under me, young men and young women, 5 or 10 years younger than me. I've been there, I've worked with them, I've been in sales with them, I have, where you've been. Not a lot, but enough to where I've had plenty of opportunities. And I have not had that particular situation where I was attracted or someone was attracted to me. I thank God that I didn't have that. That is, no one was coming on to me where I worked. I have had that in the church, by the way. I have had it in the church. I've had 4 or 5 situations. Even had one lady that came to me one time and said, I believe you're in love with me. And just came right out with it. And that was a pretty tough one to handle. But I have not been jealous of her because I wouldn't do this. As a man, I would not do this. So I'm not jealous of her out there. So jealousy of a man, of his woman, of his wife, is because he is afraid of what he might do. A lot of times with daughters, men are afraid to let their daughters get out, afraid to let their daughters date because they know what they were like when they were young. I know what I was like when I was young. And it's a whole different lifestyle than what we have today for our kids. These kids today, it's really shocking to me. Sometimes I think maybe a person shouldn't live more than about 60 years because the morals just change so much in that period of time. It's hard to accept them. My wife and I dated. I actually lived in the same house with my wife for 2 months before we were married, with her grandparents and her brother and sister. We never touched each other. And when I say we lived together, right away the thing that comes up, oh yeah, you were sleeping together. No, we weren't sleeping together. We did not touch each other till our wedding night. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm sorry for anybody that goes that other route because I just can't see. It seems like it would just ruin everything for your marriage because of that intimacy of that wedding night. But at any rate, I'm not jealous. So when my daughters dated, my granddaughters are dating, I know what the possibilities are, but I don't get excited and upset because I have confidence. It doesn't come from insecurity on my part. So last thing here, the tendency of a man is not to share his real needs with his wife. He wants her to admire him as a success. But before honor must come humility. He will win her love more by sharing his specific failures than by reporting his successes. Now, men think this is, oh, we can't do this. We can't admit our weaknesses. Let me tell you something, man. I don't care who it is, where you are. When you admit your weakness, you became strong in that person's sight. When you admitted that you weren't totally competent, excuse me, when you admit your weakness, then you are recognized by others, your wife and others, as being strong, because you know when you know where your weakness is. If you don't admit it, then everybody knows you don't know it. You won't admit it. You're weak because you can't face up to it. You own your own sin. The Bible says, excuse me, you own your own sin. So you share with her your weaknesses and ask for her support to help you. This is what they want to do. They want to be your helpmate. That's what they were designed for. They want to be your helpmate, and they will support you. But they can't support you if they don't know what your weakness is. If they don't know what your fear is. There's a new teaching out now that you can find, and we can direct you to, about learning what your fear is. I believe it's by Marshall. My son was telling me about it just the other day, that you learn what your fear is, and your wife, and so on, and you share this with one another. So you admit it, and don't worry about failure. The person who doesn't fail hasn't tried anything. All right? He must not only explain his needs, but teach her precisely what she can do to help meet them. So that covers number 2. And then the next thing in your page is special steps in selecting a secretary. That's just there for your information. If you're in that position where you have somebody working for you or will be selecting somebody to work for you, this gives you a guideline for that. And so I'm just going to give you that as extra material. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back here in 10 minutes to begin again on number 3. She needs to see and hear that you cherish her and that you delight in her as a person. That's our next subject when we come back. Thank you.